right, guys. So welcome to the show. For a long time, many of you know me, and I'm typically on the fence about vodkas, but this one was super intriguing, especially when you start thinking about the story, which you're going to get to know some of here. But my guest today argues that vodka is far from boring and if you're just drinking and you might just be drinking the wrong stuff. He's a scientist, a flavor chemist, and the master blender behind a spirit that is quite unique and literally rewriting the textbook on distillation. Instead of corn, wheat, or potatoes, he looked at New England's massive dairy industry and saw an opportunity. He decided to distill Whey, the natural milk sugars left over from cheese making, to create a spirit that is additive-free, chemically distinct from anything else on the bar. He started in a literal broken shed, which we're going to hear tons of after this. And today, his creation is the fastest growing vodka brand in the United States and the winner of Best in Show at 2025 TAG Global Spirits Award. He is the man blending science with nature to create the Vodka of Tomorrow. Please welcome today's guest, Mark Simmons of Broken Shed Vodka. How are you, Mark?
Hey, thank you very much, and thanks for having us here. It's good to be here.
Great to have you, man. It's something that I thought was very interesting, especially from New Zealand. I don't necessarily always hear about spirits. Any spirits are from New Zealand at all, honestly. And maybe I'm just ignorant to it. So tell us about yourself. How did you end up in the spirits industry, and just how this is going for
you? Yeah, thank you. Well, so yes, spirits is quite new for New Zealand. We probably lagged the rest of the world a little bit, but we developed our wine industry later, but became, world respected in our winemaking. And then we moved into the beer industry and followed suit with lots of small microbreweries. And then in the last 10 years, distilleries and spirits have been the next one off the blocks for New Zealand. And very quickly, we've developed quite an industry down here in spirits. And one thing you have to do in New Zealand, a long way from any market, is you have to punch above your weight a little bit. So definitely, New Zealanders understand the fact that we need to produce world-class spirits to be able to sell them internationally. Myself, I've been doing beverage in the Central Otago region since early 90s. And I got into it through wanting to make cider. That was where I started in that industry. And that just was a progression for me through own business, doing fruit juices, mineral waters, cider, and then moved into the wine industry. And then met the other two co-founders and tapped me on the shoulder, and we thought about making vodka. So it was a very interesting step. I mean, initially my throwback for vodka is like, why would you massively, competitive field, why would you get into vodka? But they were, from the States, they were living in New Zealand, falling in love with it, and they felt that New Zealand was a great place to be able to make a vodka to take the rest of the world, and it would have a good, marketing from coming from New Zealand. And the more I thought about it, it just seemed to make sense. So yeah, that's where we started in the whole game.
So I was going to actually highlight that vodka is a relatively very competitive spirit, especially when you think about celebrity brands. You think of all these names attached to a vodka, and there's not very often that there's a distinctive aspect of one versus another. It's quadruple distilled, 5 times distilled, triple distilled, GMO free, all these things. But the way that you went about it with Whey, what was the reason that stood out to you for those at home?
So, yeah, look, good questions. Whey was not, there was no predetermined idea. I went into vodka, I went into spirits quite naive, I guess. And I actually find that sometimes, when you go into an area of making products, if you're not indoctrinated with what the industry does, it can put you in quite a good space. So basically, there was a lot of, pretty naive questions that I asked when to get started. So make a vodka from New Zealand to sell to the States. That was my brief. So I approached that from the point of view that, okay, it's, my underwriting to the guys is you've got to invest in me for the time to be able to develop a world-class product. Otherwise, it's not worth doing it. So they said, fine, go for it. So, I sat down in the shed and I thought, how do I approach this? And it's kind of interesting that vodka is a very simple product, a lot of times just two ingredients. But therein lies the challenge, because how do you make your product stand out, as you say? So you've got to make it stand out with your marketing, but you've blind tastings with all the other vodkas. We did this a couple of times, three times, 18 different products, doing blind tasting, getting a feeling of what the other vodkas were like on the international stage. And then the second way of approaching it was like, I'm going to, make bases, I'm going to buy bases, I'm going to get different ethanol from all different sources, from all different places, and just start playing around and see what we like and what we don't like. And that's where I started, basically, just a clean sheet, and a lot of tastings in the shed, very social Friday nights. People would come into the shed, and I would, my 2 weeks worth of playing around with different stuff, and I would have five or six there, and people would come in for a drink, and the first thing I had to do was do some blind tastings with me, fill in a sheet, and then it would be a social evening. And that was what directed us as to the direction we wanted to go. And basically from those blind tastings, we had, using a whey source distillate. There was a word that kept coming back when people were doing blind tastings, and that word was clean. And it was really amazing. So it was from those tastings that we started going, wow, this source has got a very cool, people are picking up on it. And then you'd sit down, Monday morning after the Friday night event, and you'd be analyzing things, and you would say, well, actually, what do you do? It kind of makes sense, right? Because, vodka is historically made from the country, in a country, from the starch of available source, right? So, in the America, it tends to be grain. You can make it out of potatoes in an Eastern Bloc country. You might make it out of grape mar in France. What does New Zealand have? Well, we have a lot of dairy. So when you think about, backing it into your branding and your story, it's like, hang on, this is actually a pretty cool logical point to come from, is that what do we have? We have a lot of dairy. It's a great start source. So everything aligned, basically, and that's where we started coming from the whey. It's our start source of volume in our country. And then there's a whole lot of other good points about whey. One of the most prominent being it's a very, very clean source.
Yeah.
So you actually don't have to, when you're distilling it, you can clean it up, but you can keep nuances of flavor from the original starch source. And to my mind, that's one of the other things, right? If you have a product made from a different starch source, you want to have nuances of that reflected in the product. So that's what we started finding we were getting. And so that's when we started deciding, let's try and do it with a whey distillate, but then, how else do we go about crafting it so that we potentially don't have to have any additives in there? So that's where whey came from.
I thought of it as such an interesting concept, because so in like bartending techniques and all that, when you're talking about clarifying, people actually use whey for clarifications, all that. So it didn't dawn on me that connection right away. I was like, oh wait, that would make sense for distillation and cleaning and refining a product. I know that you touched real briefly on the clean green image and all that is associated with New Zealand, right? Popularity, obviously, for me as a nerd, Lord of the Rings, glaciers and untouched nature. But do you feel that clean green, you kind of hinted at about leaning into that to help focus on that marketing aspect of your vodka, where it comes from real science, with pretty, with still clean, and just from nature? Did that help point you in the direction of where you wanted to go for marketing for what New Zealand was known for? Or was this kind of just what you thought as a product integrity?
So I guess, yeah, look, it leaned into it. It was just, as I say, it was one of those alignments where it was just an added boon for using that source, but it wasn't decided upon. I mean, if the whey did not taste good, if we didn't get feedback on it, we wouldn't have gone with it. So, primarily it was like we started finding that, this feedback about, wow, what a cool tasting product. It's got a flavor nuance people are picking up, even though they don't even know what they're tasting. And then, as I say, absolutely what you say is that then you look at all the benefits of using whey, and you think this is great, because this makes really logical sense that we use it. It is a very sustainable product. New Zealand got involved very early in distilling whey as an industry because we have a lot of dairy. And so, as you say, Whey is a problematic compound to dispose of. And so New Zealand started leaning into what can we do with it. And so one of the avenues for using that up the way that was the volume of whey that we had was to actually start distilling it. And so, there's years and years of experience there in being able to, put together a good class product. Um, and so it is, yeah. It's great for the story because it is sustainable. We're not planting any crops. We're not taking up any land. We're not, having to invest in that side. We are using a byproduct, which has a very big sustainable leg on it. Tastes great, very, very clear, very, very clean. And then, if you take the necessary steps and care post that, then you can do what we've done is produce a product that tastes great, is unique, and does have no additives in it.
Once again, I thought it was fascinating to even go down that path with it because it's vodka, and it's unfortunate because vodka does get that hey, it's just a neutral spirit, you kind of do whatever, but to be able to do something different that I haven't seen before was something that I think a lot of our listeners will be excited to try out as something unique. So definitely looking forward to getting to explore more with that. We talked about it also in your kind of your origin story. You weren't in distilling, you were a flavor chemist. What was that like, going from flavor chemist and scientist and then using that knowledge and experience? But I guess tell us about flavor chemistry first, and what was that like first?
So yeah. Look, I haven't had any formal training in that industry. It's just simply that I came. We started a business basically to make cider and fruit juices. And so what do you start doing there? Is you start developing products based on taste and where you want to go. And as I touched on before, I've always had this. I think it's quite lucky you have this approach where you're not indoctrinated in the industry. So therefore, you just start building what you think is great, and then you come into the problems that anybody else in a food technology background would go, well, that's why you don't do it like that because you get these issues. But over that sort of history, it's like I'd rather come up with a product, have some technical difficulties, use the technology people to help me beat those and overcome those, and that will put you in a sort of a unique, clear space. So that happened with some of the fruit juices that I developed. It was like great tasting, but then I would have, issues with, stability or how it would keep or separation, things like that. And then you would try in a way to address those things, but keep the core product that you developed and the taste profile or the structure that you've initially set out for. So this is what happened with the vodka is, 6 months out, sitting in the shed, I said to the boys one morning, I said, look, we can make a vodka, and I can do it probably like 80% of the industry does, and use an additive, a sweetener, or a glycerol, or a filler just to fill in the hole, just to give it some mouthfeel, just to give it something. But I think I might be able to do this without using an additive. And they said, that sounds great. Let's just keep going down that track. And that's really where I went with the waters. And because I'd spent many years bottling waters and using mineral waters and doing tabletop mineral water, I understood that water wasn't water. It's all different. It's a very complex product in a lot of ways. So I started playing around with using natural mineral content in water to help fill out the product to give a nice taste profile. I've always believed that a nice taste profile is always from the tip of your tongue to the last bit down your throat. It's just got to follow a curve, right? It's got to take you on a wee journey. It's a lot more subtle with vodka, but it is still there. So how do I fill those but using natural ingredients? Well, we've only got water. That's our only product. If you go to the food technology people or you go to the industry, generally they'll say to you, look, just strip back your water. You don't want any issues. You don't want any problems. Just strip it back because that's the safe way of doing it. I mean, at the end of the day, a vodka has to be stable in your freezer at minus 20 C and on the dashboard of your car at plus 40 C. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but you know what I mean. It's an extreme
I'm sure listeners do
temperature
that.
yeah. it's an extreme in temperature that you have to make a product stable for. And I had issues with that. So I would start doing elevated storage tails and temperature issues, and I would have trouble with flocculation and bits and pieces. So I knew that I had to get my head around the science of how to keep minerals in the product, but keep it stable. And that's kind of the trick. That's the kind of the trick that I do. But then I have this advantage now that I have two products, two waters, which means when I'm blending, when I'm putting the product together, post distillation, when I'm actually, getting ready to bottle, I've got two liquids that I can use to blend to keep my taste profile the same all the way through. So it's kind of a very unique, but it's also a very positive way to be able to do it because it gives me full control about putting each batch together.
That's really so. There's a couple things I want to go through with that, right? So we talked about additive free and kind of going through, obviously with Whey having that very distinct flavor profile and mouthfeel. When I talk about when you are, I'll go back to clarifying cocktails and using milk base. It gives a smooth mouthfeel where kind of you could almost it's almost a little bit viscous, little different texture, right? Do you think that, can you kind of tell us is what's going on in the science that removes that burn from ones that have additives and less in a different distillation process? Because this sounds like it's going to give you a smoother, less burn and overall better product for consumers, right?
Yeah. Look, but still, it does. But what I'm probably thinking is that, a lot of the time I'll give people a taste of Broken Shed and they'll go, because they go Whey and they go, oh, it's creamy, it's with, and that's what you're talking about, which is absolutely correct. But there's an association sometimes that it's all coming from the Whey. And the actual truth is that Broken Shed has a width of palate that is a little bit unique in the vodka circle. And a lot of that width that you gets on the side of your cheeks is actually coming from minerals in the water. And so what it does is it creates a base that the ethanol, that the distillate sits on really well. And Whey, because it's so clean, it's only 3 times passed, so that it does have a pretty mild burn, and it does have flavor notes that keep it smooth. But also what we've got with the Broken Shed is this width in the water that just carries the palate so smoothly. So that's sometimes that fullness and that creaminess that you're tasting, it is actually also the mineral content in the waters that I have in there, particular mineral contents that we maintain.
Understood. So because I have when we were researching Broken Shed, it talked about the 2 different water sources, North Island and South Island. Most distillers just brag about one well, maintaining that same thing. Why was blending that mineral, and you kind of went through it, about blending the mineral rich with the demineralized water necessary to get that texture you wanted? How long did that take to refine that process and find that balance? Or was that something that you're still working on perfecting? How is that going? How did that go? How long? I feel like that's a trial and error.
Yeah, very much so. It took too long. It took way too long. I remember the lads getting a bit frustrated with just the length of time it was taking me, because it's so subtle, right? And every time that I did a different blend with waters, and then then I'd have to change the charcoal, what I was doing post that, and so you get all these slight changes, and the products ending up different. And then you go and do your taste, and you know what it's like. We go 11 o'clock. That's late enough. It's early enough. We'll have a wee tasting. After you've done a dozen tastings, your palate's gone. You can't pick it up anymore. And you kind of have to go to the next day. So it was for the lads. It was frustrating the length of time that it was taking me to try and work that out. But it was trying to get that smoothness without actually the water could easily actually overtake the product, and so it would actually taste minerally or watery. So you wanted it to back it off until it was just right, and that was understanding which minerals that I needed, and the mineral water they use has a very unique mineral balance. So it wasn't just any mineral water. I was playing around with all these different sources, but then I had to work out a way to back it off and control it, so that it didn't taste, overly, noticeable, but also that I had the stability problem, that it wasn't going to cause an issue in the bottle subsequently. So that's where that whole, I thought, well, I do what I've done with all my other beverages in the past is that, if you've got a blending process, you've got control. So that blending gives me control, and that hasn't changed. So even now, 15 years down the track, and and some degree of success in the US, and certainly a lot more volume than what we used to do. The process is still very much the same. I'm actually post distillate. I'm sitting there. I'm bringing two waters together. I'm treating them with my own design filtration process, and I'm blending those waters together and tasting them before I've even brought the distillate together with it. So each batch, I'm doing that, and then blending together, tasting off from that, and then so I've got that control all the way through, and it hasn't changed.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
I mean, practice, it takes a while to get perfection, get right? So it makes sense. But I just thought that was such an interesting, like, I want 51%, 49%, that process, that trial and error and finding that perfect balance obviously is gaining, it was worth it. You've won multiple awards. You're the highest growing vodka brand in the United States per liquor handbook for like the last 3 years. So definitely it's landing well. So worth all that effort. I want to talk about the name, Broken Shed. Just tell us, where did that come from and how, tell us about those nights. You talked about those trial and error nights with your friends on Friday nights, which more than one of us have done. So go ahead.
Yeah, so well, as I say, one of the founders had a property on the banks of Lake Wanaka, and it's like come up with this idea. What are we going to do? Well, I've got this old shed garage on the property. We'll just set up in there. So basically, it was cool. It was an old garage, and put some nice doors on it. Had a little pot belly in there, and a couple of couches and three desks, and we just sat there and kicked around ideas, and that's where I started doing all my initial work. And then it was like at the same time, it's like, well, if we're going to do this, what are we going to call it? And so, the idea came up. Well, what about just Broken Shed? We're sitting in an old broken shed. Why not just call it Broken Shed? And as I say, the other two founders, they're American, so they went, yeah, that's got a cool ring to it. That'll work in the market. They knew the market. So it was like, okay, that's it. It's Broken Shed. So away we go.
It's a brilliant name. I liked it. When we did the research, I was like, it had to have started in a shed. It had to. Please tell me this is actually from a like origin story. Because I love those brands who have that personal touch. I think not just leaning into something that sounds cool and like, hey, fire starter or something. This has sentimental value to like the origin and how hard you guys worked, and where you didn't start a giant facility. You started a garage that someone happened to have on a property. So well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Of course. At what point did it dawn on you? It was like, hey, we can't work out of this shed anymore. It's starting to be a thing. Like how long were you in that shed before you had to were scaling up? What was that transition like?
Yeah, so we were in the shed 5 years or a bit longer, and because history of other businesses and beverage, so I was using some of my other facilities, 50 k's down the road to do some of the products. So as we got commercial and started selling in New Zealand, I was using facilities down there, and sort of just kept that model to date, because you've got to remember that the idea of this product was to take it to the US. Let's do a unique. Well, it wasn't unique initially. It was just like, let's make a high quality New Zealand product and take it to the US market. So that was always the intention, to get across to the US and hope to get lucky. And after we released the product in New Zealand, 18 months later, we all went to the States and we started just pounding the footpaths and trying to sell it over here. So, I had to work out what I did with production then. At that stage, we were still in the shed, but I was starting to utilize as other facilities. And so rather than going down the track of, spending money on bricks and mortar in our own backyard, it was all about, for me, it was all about how to control, come back, do batches, put it together, get it bottled, put it on a boat, get across to the US, follow it over, and keep selling it. So it was just started using different facilities, just using contacts and the experience of being in the game for a while. So yeah, that was just a slow progression. And then founder his life changed a little bit, and so we had to leave that property. But it was home for 6 years. So and now I'm spread over about three different facilities, but because the focus is still just trying to keep the rate of growth going in the US. That's the game.
That is one thing in the United States that we're really good at is drinking. So definitely the market that you want to tap into. I mean, I've had friends who live in Glasgow, in Ireland, and a couple other countries out there. And when I tell them that we have places like Total Wine and ABC Liquors that are basically grocery stores devoted to just alcohol, they look at me like I'm a wild man. I'm like, I could DoorDash 3 bottles of whiskey right now. And it's always comical to them. So you definitely picked the right market. For sure. And with that being said, obviously growing and doing fantastic. 2025 Best in Show. What did that award mean to you coming from a shed? So 2025 Best in Show at TAG Awards, Global Spirits Awards.
Yeah, look, it's great. It's like a touch point because sometimes it's just what you're doing, you're on the right track. That's what I take out of it. It's like, keep doing what we're doing. Don't change it up. It's working because, how do you take a product from New Zealand, take it to the States and that massively competitive, high consuming, we love it. We love you guys. But, how do you get breakthrough in that market? When you've got companies dropping 20 mil just to launch a new product, strength of product. That's the only way you can do it. So, the way that we started was basically, walking into bars, here's product from New Zealand. Oh yeah, I've got enough vodkas. I don't need another one. Hey, look, can you just do a blind tasting? Just standing behind the strength of the product. And that was it. Selling by just getting people to taste it. And as soon as they did, they go, oh, okay. Because it wasn't just another vodka, they would go, okay, this is good. This is good. So that's what we got. That's enabled us to get a little bit of breakthrough. And so getting awards still now, it's great. I just find it quite, it's quite humbling. And it's just like, just stick to what we're doing. It's just, I just take it as we're on the right track. People are recognizing it. Let's just keep going.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's well deserved with everything you've been telling me, the process you go through. It seems like a very much a trial of love, right? It's a job's not finished. Awards don't mean it. Just keep doing what you're doing and continue doing it well. You talked about hitting the ground and boots on the ground and working with bars and bartenders and trying to kind of get into a very saturated market with vodkas, right? In bars that have their price points, have their brands, have their all that. When they did the blind tasting, it stuck out to them. Was there also an approach to, hey, certain cocktails, certain different ways of utilizing the spirit? Did it come with kind of like, these are the things that we would recommend, or was it let them do those creative liberties on their own?
A little bit of both. We were always proponents of less is more. Mm-hmm. You got to remember that when we were over there, that 3 years of just pounding the pavement and hawking it ourselves. That's 2012 to 2015. So our take was less is more. I mean, you're tasting it. I'm giving it straight. I'm giving it to you warm. It's the worst and best way to taste a vodka because it doesn't hide anything. Yeah. And you like it, and I'm blind tasting it against your 2 top selling vodkas and with people behind the bar, and you go, oh wow, this is good. So why would you want to do a highly flavored, sugared, sweet cocktail? Probably just dry vodka martinis was our pour of choice, and or just vodka on the rocks, vodka soda with a lime, just simple. That was ready. So we didn't really, we didn't draw on the whole bartend mixology side strongly. We just basically said, if you like it, it's natural, it's got no additives, it's got flavor nuances. You're the experts, you know your industry. Yeah. You show us how you think you should do it. And still to this day, I think, it's just great that we get people that recognize that it does have something. and then people that just follow that same path. It's like, well, let's make sure we do a cocktail with it that showcases the product because it deserves to be.
Yeah, and I think it's a perfect time to present a product that is additive free, and because there has been some negative attention to spirits who are claiming things on their labels that aren't, or people who are very health conscious, or we go down the whole agave wormhole of things, or sugar or whatever. Yeah. But it's important to a lot of people to know what they're drinking. Your vodka is GMO free. It's additive free. It's exactly what people would like. They want to know what's in their glass. So it's a perfect product to be out there doing that, because people are scrutinizing what they put in their bodies a lot more every day, especially with the internet and access to information. So, and also, and I also commend you because it says a lot about the flavor, right? If you're like, you don't have to mask it with everything else. You can enjoy it neat. Yeah. It says a lot about how that flavor profile comes through.
Yeah. And that smoothness of it, and just that very, very light controlled burn. Exactly.
If it doesn't burn, it's not doing the job. So with this, with Broken Shed, are there plans now that, 3 massive facilities, you're still in New Zealand, you have partners in the United States. Are there plans to, hey, are we going to expand to different spirits? Is there a thought process? Is that something that maybe you've ever thought about? Or is it, I love this product, this is what I would like to stick with?
You always flirt with different ideas and expansions on the way. But at the end of the day, the team has always decided that, there's more to do just what we're doing, stay focused to the product. So, it is kind of unique that you have a vodka company that doesn't do any flavors, that only does the one product. But that's because we've always got growth to go. We've always got new places to go. We don't need to just focus. We don't need to fatten the stuff out. So, and I think it's served us well, to be honest, especially being a long way to market for us. It's a little bit different for businesses that might be based in the US, but we're in New Zealand, and it's sort of 40 days on a boat to get to market. It is a little different kettle of fish. So it's served us well just to stay focused to what we do. Keep the product quality there, keep doing what we're doing. It's worked, it's got us to this point. So, why would you shake it up?
Fair. Your mantra of the vodka of tomorrow says a lot about what the goal is, right? You want to stay that course and do it very well. What made you decide vodka of tomorrow? I'm just curious what that thought process was.
Sorry, the byline, vodka of tomorrow.
The vodka tomorrow. Yeah. What made you decide on that tagline?
Yeah, look, there was a lot behind it, and it was just about, I think that we're positioned quite well. When we first started selling, I mean, in the 15 years, we've seen, and you touched on it, we've seen customer perception change and develop and grow. Mm-hmm. Initially, it was all about the taste and just, and blind tasting gets other products. But as you say, people have become more and more conscious about what's in the drink, what's in their story. Is it authentic? Is it, and we've been very well positioned because we are what we are. We've never been anything but. And so I think, there's kind of a little bit, like in anything, a little bit of luck in that just way that the market has gone and public perception has gone. We've just been very, very well positioned. So I think that sort of leans into what we felt about the vodka of tomorrow, because people are putting more and more onus on where we come from. Initially, we, saying that we would always say that we were, no additives, that was key. But the whole sustainable ticket and that whole story and the the other benefits and ticks that we have become more into play, which means we're well positioned as to be, the vodka of tomorrow.
Oh, awesome. So a couple more questions. I want to hear about some of those failed experiments early on with Broken Shed. Any batches or anything that you could recall that were like, this wasn't the way we needed, because whey could be derived from different sources of cheese and everything like that. Was there ever a batch you're like, no, absolutely, like, were you?
Definitely. There was some stuff that ended up being weed killer.
Oh my God.
No, yeah.
Threw me out. I was like, wait a minute.
No, yeah, big learning curve, and yeah, there were stuff that I did that never even got to the tasting table, or didn't get any positive feedback on the tasting table. It's like, all right, that was the wrong way to go. No, for sure. And as again, this is the thing about vodka is that it's very simple, but you can impart a flavor or an unwanted flavor to a vodka very, very easily. So that's what I learned. It's like, again, going back to my background, bottling water is like you think, oh, bottling water would be the easiest thing in the world. Where actually anybody who's operated a bottling plant will tell you bottling water is one of the hardest things to do because you can impart a flavor to that water very quickly and you're going to notice it. And vodka's a bit like that. So the more that you do in the process, the more that you can affect it the way that the product tastes. And if you've got nothing else in there, you've got nothing to hide that. So, you actually, have to be pretty careful about what you do. And so, yeah, I did have issues where every now and then I would do something and it's like, well, that didn't work. So, yeah, plenty of stuff that just got, was used for weed killer.
Oh, I can only imagine. So I'm a nerd and I know where Whey derives from, but depending on what source you get, it could probably give you some taste that you weren't hoping for. So I was curious if weed killer is going to be perfect. Weed killer is perfect. What I was looking for. You've seen the rise of gin, rise of tequila, and the rise of whiskey. As a vodka man, does it ever frustrate you that often vodka gets left out as just kind of like a diet drink or something in the background? Or are you just like, hey, everyone has a place? How do you feel about those trends that keep popping up?
Oh, no, look, I love it because at the end of the day, this is what I love about the spirits and just the beverage industry as a whole is you never stop learning it, never stop changing. And, it's always exciting and you never know, you're just always learning. And that's partly driven by, perception changes. And I think the growth of those other products always helps to educate the palate. And I think for us, sometimes it just plays into our hand because then there is more differentiation in the market. And again, we're well placed. If people start to differentiate products and applying, a higher degree of knowledge and a more developed palate, it plays into our hand. So yeah, no, I love it. And I drink a lot of other spirits apart from vodka for sure. So definitely. No, I think it's great. I think it's great. I don't see any frustration with it. And yeah, I mean, vodka, selling it sometimes you'd get the comment, oh, vodka's vodka. But I think more and more now people are differentiating because especially if people drink it neat, drink it in straight martinis, dry martinis, they know that there's a difference. Yeah. And I just see more and more of that. So again, well placed and just like the way it's going.
Yeah, I would agree as a consumer. I think that there's a lot more attention on one, value, and two, if the product's good, the product's good, regardless of everything else. I would argue to plenty of my friends who are whiskey drinkers, it's just because a bottle costs more doesn't mean that it's better. Just because it has a celebrity backing it does not mean it's better. Just because it's, all of them have the same proof and mash bill doesn't mean something's better or like something's or less of a quality product. So yeah, giving people the opportunity to taste your vodka is probably the best way of going, especially with these brands like Grey Goose and all those that are oversaturated the spirit category. So I got two questions. One's one of my favorite ones is, what was your deathbed cocktail? Using any spirit. And then if you could share a dram of Broken Shed with anyone in history, living, dead, inside that original shed, who would it be?
Who would it be? Wow. That's an interesting one. But I mean, it could never happen, But it's a vodka martini, so wouldn't you want to share it with James Bond and go, hey, it should be stirred, not shaken?
Which one? Which James? Which James Bond? That's not specific.
I always thought Sean Connery. He was, I think, the best.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So vodka martini with Sean Connery. Perfect. All right. Awesome. Well, Mark, I appreciate you coming on the show. I can't wait to try your product and more. Try your product, share it with my friends, and maybe create some cocktails with them. I'm not a martini guy, but I will 100% give it a shot just because you suggested it.
Exactly. Oh, great.
Where can people find you? Broken Shed, any upcoming events or anything that you'd like to promote and share with the audience?
Well, no, just look it out for in your local bottle store and ask for it. Yeah, that's it. Get out there and try it, and you'll like it. You'll like it.
All right, perfect. So I'll make sure to share your social media tags, everything on IG with the show notes, so everyone could find you and find where your product is sold. So thank you for hanging out with us. It was so much fun to get to know everything out about Broken Shed, that there was an actual real shed and it wasn't just a marketing ploy. Looking forward to everything you guys keep doing and continue to grow. For everyone listening at home, thank you, Mark, again. Like, share, subscribe. Keep an eye out for some of the cocktails that we'll hopefully make with Broken Shed, including martinis. And it'll be my first martini in 5 years, Mark. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm honored.
Martinis, yeah, it's been a while. Now I said it out loud. I was like, wait, yeah, it has been 5 years. Everyone, make sure that you drink responsibly. Don't drink and drive. Try Broken Shed. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, and keep an eye out for all the upcoming episodes and interviews with very interesting people in the spirits industry. So keep an eye out, and big shout out to Laura for setting us up today. Thank you, Mark. Take care, everyone. Hey guys, today's episode is brought to you by Burn Termite and Pest Control. I first met Joe Byrne on Full Frontal Nerdy Show and decided to give his company a try. They have been the best pest service I've ever had. From flexible scheduling, attention to detail, fair pricing, and everything you love about a small business, I highly recommend Joe Byrne and Burn Termite and Pest Control. It's a family-owned and operated business with over 30 years of experience in termite and pest. You can reach Burn Termite and Pest Control at 321-297-7985. Once again, 321-297-7985. And let them know Bourbon and Bullshit sent you. Thanks, guys. See you next time.